Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today. It is now noon, so we are going to get started on our webinar. So I'm Jamie. I'm with University Health along with Metro Council. So Metro Council of Community Behavioral Health Centers. So excited that you guys are here today. And thank you for joining our webinar. So a couple quick announcements. First one is, so Metro Council, we are a collaborative of all the community mental health centers in the Metro. So there's 7 of us. So it'd be University Health, Beacon Mental Health Center, SWOPE, Comprehensive, Rediscover, Johnson County Mental Health Center, and then Wyandotte Behavioral Network. So along with Center for Behavioral Medicine and Mental Health America of the Heartland. So thank you guys so much for being here. We do free webinars like this on the second and the fourth Thursday of the month from 12 to 1. So come join us every other Thursday. And then also we have a large conference that we put on every May. So please save the date. It'll be May 23rd and 24th, all day on May 23rd. We get out at noon on the 24th, so you still have plenty of time to enjoy Memorial Day weekend. And it's at a new location this year. It's at Johnson County Community College. We are really excited. We're in the midst of planning it. I will tell you, we are going to have over 70 breakout sessions, 2 keynote speakers, just amazing variety of information around behavioral health. So we hope that all of you are going to be able to join. As I said, May 23rd and 24th, put it on your calendars now. And at Johnson County Community College, registration will be coming out in about the next 3 to 4 weeks. So save the date, and we hope that you all can join us. And with that, really excited to present Autumn. And so just some quick announcements about Zoom webinars. So you're on Zoom webinar, which means you're able to see the presenter and myself, but not yourself. And you'll be able to communicate through the chat box or the Q&A. And then at the end of our time together, I will put a link in the chat that you will be able then to download a certificate of attendance. So quick little disclaimer, the views and opinions presented are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Metro Council. However, the 4th Thursday of the month, we now have Metro Council members presenting. So really excited that Autumn is here, and I'm just going to give you a little information about her. So just a little bit of information about Autumn. Autumn Ray, she is called many things, but therapist is the one title where her heart bursts for joy. And she's a veteran of the U.S. Navy. And shortly after the end of her service obligation, she received her master's degree in business and then offered a position in Kansas City, Missouri Employee Benefits Security Administration as a federal agent. But when you're not doing what you're called to do, because life has a way of reminding you that you have not lived up to your potential, she had no idea that just a few short years later, she'd be entering into the field of therapy. And she began her journey as a therapist at Hope House as an intern, but also a survivor of domestic violence, and then to Cornerstones of Care to work with youth and to finish up her internship. Then was offered an amazing opportunity as a contractor working with Tri-County Mental Health, now known as Beacon Mental Health, as the integrated treatment therapist for co-occurring disorders, which she has really enjoyed. So with that, really excited to present Autumn, and take it away.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate that. You can see my camera and you can see my my PowerPoint, right?
We can't see your PowerPoint.
You cannot see my PowerPoint?
Mm-mm.
Okay, hold on, let me see here. Just wondering what was going on here. Okay.
Yay, now we can see it.
Okay, hold on, let me see. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Trying to figure out, sometimes these computers have a mind of their own. All right, yes, I am Autumn Ray, and I do work for Beacon Mental Health, and I'm here to talk to you about International Boost Self-Esteem Month. I'm so excited to present to you about self-esteem. Let's go ahead and get started. The beach is my favorite thing. It's the place that's my peaceful place. I love all things beach and ocean related, so you might see a few slides with beach background. So it just kind of reminds me to take a deep breath and to stay grounded. So yes, here we go. We're taking a breath. We're doing some grounding. There's a lot of research that talks about how mind and body are one. And so when we're constantly thinking and doing things in our culture, our hustle culture, sometimes we don't have the opportunity to just hit pause and breathe. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do right now in this moment with this slide. Just take a moment to take a deep breath. Feel the oxygen entering in through your nostrils, filling up your lungs, leaving your lips. Your body is going to follow. Drop your shoulders. Just kind of feel the peace in your body. Our agenda today, we're going to talk about how and what self-esteem is and how it's developed. Identify the 8 dimensions of wellness. They are a huge component of our being as a whole. We're going to talk about the emotions wheel. I know I've had a lot of questions about that. What is low self-esteem and the impact that it does have? How self-esteem is maintained. And then we're going to have a model of low self-esteem and then also a model of healthy self-esteem. How to work through some negative self-talk. And I've had a lot of requests to talk about parenting and self-esteem, so that's going to be towards the end. This is me. Here we go with the ocean again. I don't need to go into the introduction because there was already such an awesome one done for me. So yes, February is International Boost Self-Esteem Month, excuse me. And it's observed every year. It's a period to set aside the year to help us believe in and appreciate ourselves more despite whatever it is that we're facing. We know that sometimes in our culture, we have a lot of things happen and we're doing a lot of things. And again, sometimes it impacts the way that we think of ourselves, the way that we do things, the way that we treat ourselves. And so this is just a time for us to hit pause and to just be mindful and we're going to talk about how we do that. I am a quote person. I love quotes. I am inspired by quotes. Muhammad Ali is a huge inspiration. I love it. I love this quote. He says, "I'm the greatest," and I said it before I even knew I was. If you know his story, it's a really good story, powerful story of how he is a really accomplished boxer. And then just a couple of other quotes. I can show confidence, but I can't share it. It's mine and no one can take it from me. One of my favorite ones. I love that one. You are the one and only version of you. Own it. All right. Just going into a little bit of a timeline of the self-esteem. So in 1965, there was this psychologist, Dr. Morris Rosenberg, who came up with the self-esteem scale. It's a 10-item questionnaire, and we still use it today. It was originally for high school students, but it's also amongst adults. And it can be scored and interpreted in a lot of different ways. I have an example of that on the next slide, so just bear with me. We'll get to that in a moment. In 1986, California politician John Veselis set up a task force to promote high self-esteem, and he felt that it could have been an answer to social ills. However, it did not turn out the way that it was supposed to or what it was intended for. But this has launched a lot of really good self-esteem initiatives, and currently there is one, the State Task Force to Promote Self-Esteem and Personal and Social Responsibility. So it's just kind of like they're ongoing. In 1997, there were 4 dimensions of a personality, and they were examined by a couple of the other psychologists, and they include the locus of control. Basically, that's what I'm in control of, what I'm not in control of, and what I have influence over. Neuroticism, generalized self-efficacy and self-esteem. And then in the 20th century, we did the studying self-esteem objectively, and there's the OSA theory, objective self-awareness theory. And there were a couple of other psychologists that focused on detail the self-esteem theory that had two internal systems, and with that system geared towards matching behavior and attitude. So there's that. This is the Rosenberg scale. Again, it is scored kind of complicated because the first couple of questions are, do I agree positively? And then the bottom questions are, or the end questions are, do I feel worthless as a person, kind of thing. So it's really kind of hard to, score. But if you want more information, I do have references. You can go to the APA website. It is determined to be 92% reliable. And they say that it predicts potential future depression and anxiety. So these skills are pretty good. Sometimes it helps you identify things within yourself that you're not fully aware of. There we go with the beach again. So self-esteem is defined as an individual's subjective evaluation of their worth. Concept of self-esteem dates back to the 18th century and was first expressed in the writings of Scottish Enlightenment thinker David Hume. He quotes, "It is an important to value and think well of oneself because it serves as a motivational function that enables people to explore their full potential." So true, so wise words. So just certain things and facts to ponder. First of all, one of the questions is self-esteem a subjective, hard to analyze, or do you feel like it's more objective and easy to analyze? And so it's more subjective because it kind of is determining or predicting outcomes, happiness, satisfaction, and achievement in life. That's more subjective. Do we succeed because of high self-esteem or failure from low self-esteem? Something to think about for yourself. Do accomplishments cause self-esteem to rise? And do failures cause it to fall? Potentially. Do accomplishments cause self-esteem to raise and failures to cause, okay, sorry, I've already said that. Do past experiences influence self-esteem? Do you think so? I mean, all of these answers could be yes, and they all could be no. I mean, it just really depends on like certain things that you believe in yourself. It's really interesting because a long time ago, we had this psychologist, Maslow. He came up with this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically talking about our basic needs in our lives to be a normal functioning, quote unquote, normal functioning human being. And esteem is a basic human need. Confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect of self. It has physical links to the brain. So findings from neuroscience research shows that self-esteem is related to the connectivity of the brain's circuit. And so that's a cognitive and behavior processes. There are many approaches to improving self-esteem. Obviously, I'm a therapist, so some of those ways are talking about this cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR. We have, dialectical behavioral therapy. We got trauma forms of therapy. There's all kinds of therapies that could potentially assist in just identifying certain things that could help you boost some self-esteem. Physical exercise can boost your self-esteem. We got the certain chemicals that are released and can improve your overall mood. Pardon me? And then low self-esteem can affect other people. It can affect your relationships, the quality of a person's life, and can make you feel angry and maybe potentially the way you talk to other people and potentially bully them. Here we go. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I think it is beautiful. And I love sharing this with, my friends, my family, my clients. 8 dimensions of wellness. Wellness contains multiple dimensions. Some examples are social, which is pursuing satisfying relationships with other people, engaging in effective ways of resolving conflicts. Physical wellness, examples could include pursuing healthy, safe practices in areas of exercise, sleep, nutrition, sexuality. Emotional wellness, being aware and accepting own feelings and accepting some of the feelings of other people and paying attention and being able to manage and express your feelings appropriately. Your career wellness, preparing for and entering work in a consistent with one's personal interests and values. Kind of like in my intro, I've been called to do a lot of different things. Called to be a therapist, that's where I'm at. Intellectual creative wellness, adapting to changes, new information, differing perceptions and approaches. Got some financial wellness, obtaining and managing your finances. Environmental wellness, just kind of being environmentally sound choices concerning the workplace, home, and neighborhood, maintaining your home, your work, your space. Got some spiritual wellness, respecting life's progression and significance, and developing trust, integrity, accountability, and an ethical life approach. We know that self-esteem develops in childhood. Again, is caring for your mind, your body, and your soul. Usually affected by your culture and life experiences. Self-defined and dynamic. So whatever these things work out for you. And if you struggle with an illness or stress, you can still strive for wellness. Again, going back to just the mindfulness and the awareness, what's going on. Just taking a moment to hit pause. So just a little story, something to get your attention. Imagine that you're walking down the street and you hear the sound of a galloping horse and it's just coming at you really fast. It's moving really fast in your direction. And when the man is closer to you, you're like, what are you doing? Where are you going in such a hurry? And then the guy replies to you, he's like, I don't know, ask the horse. And then he rides away and you're sitting there like, what? So in this situation, the horse represents your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind runs constantly. Sometimes some scientists will say that we think thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. So they compare our subconscious to a computer program, and the program controls you and leads you wherever it wants. So instead, when you become self-aware, you start to become aware of your programs and start to observe them objectively. And once you start to become aware of the program, you start to control the program and not the other way around. Yes, I said you can start to be in control of your emotions. Okay? So just this picture, in the story, the horse was kind of running away with all the stuff and the person was not, but this is just the opposite. Now the person is his mind is full of stuff. And the horse is an example of being mindful, just being present. So this is the feelings wheel. I don't know if you have seen it. It does look somewhat complicated because there's a lot of different colors, a lot of different words. I have had a lot of people ask me about this and to explain it to them. There's an emotions wheel that was created in 1980 by Polchik's Wheel of Emotions. He had about 8 different core emotions, and the core emotions are in the center. Now, this is Gloria Wilcox. She created this in 1982. It's similar, but she only has 6 core emotions. This is the one that I use more frequently, again, because it's a little easier to understand. And so you see the primary emotions: mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful, sad. And those are, again, the primary emotions. And then we have secondary emotions. So if you look at mad, you can see the secondary where the red turns into like a pinky color or salmon color. And the word that associated with mad could be hurt, hostile, angry, selfish, hateful, or critical. And then even more, the tertiary of feelings: distant, sarcastic, frustrated, jealous, irritated, skeptical. So that's an example of how to kind of read this. So if you look at scared, then you got the primary, secondary, tertiary. You got the peaceful, the blue, and then it kind of gets the light blue, and then the other, like the lighter blue. So when we think of emotions as uncontrollable and they're like in a nuisance, then we can't do much about them. Then that's exactly the way it's going to happen. People will say, hey, I'm an emotional person. I'm ruled by my emotions. But whenever, again, we start doing the mindfulness, this can be a really good tool to stop the emotional spirals. And so we know that emotion and logic are two different parts of our brains. So when you're labeling, so if you're taking a second and you're using this emotions wheel as a tool for you to label your emotions, you're pulling yourself out of the emotional circuit into the prefrontal cortex, where you actually have to reason and problem solve. So that just kind of grounds you in itself. When you're thinking these thoughts and they're automatic and you're spiraling, and you just hit pause and you're like, oh my goodness, let me just take a breath. Okay, what is it that I'm feeling right now? Hey, sometimes I have to do that for myself. If I get triggered by a situation, or I'm dealing with some frustration or some anxiety, I have to ask questions in myself, in my head. Autumn, what's going on? What's the trigger? What is the feeling? Where am I feeling this in my body? So I do these things for myself. I know this sounds like a lot of work, but when you're first learning something, yes, it does take work. But after you start practicing and implementing it into your daily lifestyle, it really does start helping. And you just automatically start doing these things. So again, emotional regulation. This also helps with the ability to stay calm, collected, and centered through stress, because you're identifying the emotion. Again, sometimes I can say I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm depressed. And I actually just feel like I'm inferior, or maybe I'm sleepy. And that just kind of translates to me being mad. Because if I can sit there and think about and ask my questions to myself, Autumn, what's going on? Maybe it is, you know what, I'm just really tired. Maybe I just need to go take a 10-minute cat nap. This is also a tool for helping us understand other people and how they express their emotions and their feelings and their wants and their needs. We talk about mindful parenting. This is a great tool. You can get a copy of this that doesn't have the colors, and you can talk to it and present it to your children and have them color and have them read about and identify, hey, what does mad look like for you? Hey, whenever you're feeling selfish, what does that look like? Hey, whenever you're feeling frustrated, what does that look like? Or what do you do when you're feeling frustrated? Those are ways to talk about it, to expose some of the feelings. So these are some typical signs of positive self-esteem. Hey, I'm assertive. I can tell you what I want and what I need, and hopefully we have a great relationship to where we can either talk about it or we can negotiate about my wants and my needs. And you too. We respect boundaries. Boundaries is a great thing. A lot of people don't like boundaries. They're very, very necessary in a life and a relationship. Able to take risks, accept our strengths, saying no, being humble, understanding that I'm not always right and I'm coachable, expressing my wants and needs, having some realistic expectations, having a strong sense of my own identity, awareness again, also caring about my physical health, Oh, here it is again. I'm coachable. And then I accept responsibility. I know I'm not always right. I know I don't always have the right answers. It's okay. I can handle it. It's your journey. Understanding what you are and what makes you you. Beautiful. Typical signs of low self-esteem is you're comparing yourself to others, worrying about what other people think about you, avoiding taking new risks. We got self-doubt or something like imposter syndrome. Again, we live in a hustle culture. We're doing a lot of things. We have a lot of unrealistic expectations, and I can't live up to my own unrealistic expectations sometimes. So then I get the self-doubt of, oh my gosh, I'm not even worthy of being able to do these things. So that's starting to engage in negative self-talk. Feeling like we don't really know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going or what I feel like. And then not being able to trust my own decisions. Some causes of low self-esteem, and these are not the only things that lead to causes of low self-esteem. These are just very generic. So if you have other ones, awesome. I mean, not awesome, but good for you for having other examples. So again, some of the unrealistic expectations, societal and cultural messages, internalized shame and guilt. Remember, we talk about shame is I'm a bad person. Guilt is I do bad things. Not getting basic needs met. Struggling with some peer pressure. Struggling with loneliness. Having some brain functioning or development. Relationships, breakups, divorces. Those really weigh heavy on some self-esteem. Abusive relationships. And then unresolved trauma. Dr. Jan Roberts states that low self-esteem typically reflects those hidden thoughts and beliefs that you have about yourself. Thoughts and beliefs. So, Aaron Beck, we in the therapy world say that he's the father of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Came up with, talking about a model of low self-esteem. And then 1997, this was created to deal with some emotional disorders, try to figure out where some of this low self-esteem came from, some of these distorted thoughts, negative self-talk. And so we know that, again, low self-esteem comes from negative life experiences, sometimes during childhood and adolescence, but it also can happen later in life. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I had a great childhood, what did your relationships look like when you were a teenager or when you were an adult? Or what do your relationships look like now? We know that these negative experiences can influence how we see ourselves. And then we come away with some negative conclusions about ourselves. And that's what we call negative core beliefs. And then we develop something called unhelpful rules and assumptions. And they are to protect us from the truth of our negative core beliefs so that we can go on and functioning in our lives. Because what the unhelpful rules and assumptions do is they don't allow us to challenge our negative core belief. Because to us, our negative core belief of I'm not good enough is true. And so if I have unhelpful rules and assumptions like, well, I'm just not going to apply for this promotion because I'm not going to get it anyway because I'm just not good enough, then I'm not going to apply, which is where the unhelpful behavior comes in. And so then it's just this cycle. And under here, it talks about dormant low self-esteem, because this is all internal, right? This part, this negative core beliefs about yourself, unhelpful rules and assumptions and unhelpful behaviors, those are mostly just internal. And it's just this cycle. I'm not going to do certain things because I don't want to challenge and potentially prove my core belief from. Okay. I know this looks like a lot, but we're kind of putting it together here. So I have an at-risk situation. So again, I'm up for potential promotion. I am asked to apply for it by my supervisor, but then my negative core belief is really holding on to me like, why, Autumn? You're not even good enough. So then I get the self-critical thoughts of, well, I'm not even smart enough, or I've been in this job and I still have a lot of things to do here. So then I do the unhelpful behavior of self-sabotage potentially. Okay, I'm not even going to do it. I'm just gonna stay where I'm at. And then my negative core belief is just reaffirmed. So yeah, I'm right, because I don't ever do anything. Even though I've been asked to do it, I still made the choice to not do it. You know, again, at-risk situation, we got the negative core belief. I have a biased expectation. So there's where some of the distortion comes in. Oh, I'm no good anyway. I'm awkward. I can't have a promotion because then I have to lead people and I'm not really that good of a leader. Okay, well, I'm just not going to do it. It's just going to be safe for me to stay where I'm at. So then the unhelpful emotions and the behaviors, I'm just, again, reinforcing it all. Here is exactly the last two slides just put together, because this is how they flow. So again, on the top, it's the dormant stuff, the dormant self-esteem, mostly internal, right? And then the second part, I'm just activating I'm putting an at-risk situation where it could potentially challenge, because the question then becomes, what happens if I do apply for the job? Let's look. So here we go. At-risk situation. Hey, my boss comes to me and says, hey, Autumn, I think you'd be good for this promotion. Why don't you go ahead and apply? Oh boy, here comes my negative core belief, and it's just flaring up and it's rising up in my chest. I can feel it in my body and I feel the pressure. But wait a second. Let me work through some of those distorted thoughts. Let me figure out some evaluations about myself and my performance. Can I have an open mind to potentially what this would look like? What happens if I do stop avoiding this? What happens if I push myself out of my safety net? What happens if I do just go ahead and update my resume? Let me just start there. Just one thing at a time. Let me just update it. And then what happens if I do the interview and then the job is accepted, or I get the job and I accept it? Wow. That is what challenges and proves your negative core belief is false. And I know, so these last 2-3 slides of the models, again, how do we get to the point to where I'm confident enough to overcome some of these things, overcome some of these negative thoughts, overcome some of the distortions? And again, we go through how many thoughts a day? There's a lot. There's thousands of thoughts a day. Well, let's talk about it. Replacing negative thoughts. So again, we're dealing the awareness. I am a grounding person all day long. You talk to any of my clients and they will say, what does Autumn talk about the most? I talk about grounding and staying present in my body. Take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, feel my feet on the floor. I'm always talking about that. Because if my body's at peace, then I can be aware of my environment. I can be aware of some of my thoughts, so I'm not spiraling. Because again, I am going to have to bring you and my life into my peace, and I'm not following you into my chaos. I'm not following you into your chaos. I'm not following society into their chaos. I'm bringing it all into my peace. So again, we have the hustle culture. We're always on the go. So again, just hitting pause. The thought logs and the journaling. You know, I suggest this and I get a lot of eye rolls whenever I suggest this, but we're learning, we're growing. And just like a scientist, we're observing a stimuli, they have to write down and log the changes, the challenges, if it's working, if it's not working, the patterns. So just like we are learning new skills, we are trying to be mindful, we're trying to be aware, we're trying to be present. I'm trying to learn all these things that I learned today in this self-esteem webinar. Then I have to start journaling, because if it's up here, it's going to get messed up and mucked up with all the other things that are spiraling in my head. Meditation, if that's your thing, meditation is not to, blank out your mind. It's just, again, help you recharge yourself. We humans are just like cell phones. At nighttime, we plug in our cell phone all night. We wake up in the morning, the cell phone is at 100%. Just like us, at nighttime, we go to sleep, we recharge our batteries. So in the morning time, I'm ready to go, but by nighttime, kind of drained, right? So if I can just, again, stay mindful, stay focused on my thoughts, feelings, sensations, and breathing, I'm golden. So then we have this thing, I know I've said it a couple times today, the cognitive distortions, okay? That's a Freud thing, Sigmund Freud. He talked about them a long time ago. We have these thoughts in our heads that are, we might say, oh, I always do this. Or you never, ever ask me how I'm doing. I don't appreciate that. Or we make something really big out of something small. And then catastrophizing distortion is my favorite. I love to do catastrophizing. And Autumn, I'm a therapist. I have to pull myself out of my head sometimes. Autumn, that is just ridiculous. Calm yourself down. Take some breaths. Not the end of the world. Just because it's snowing and icing outside does not mean we're entering into a new ice age, right? Then we have the should, never. Again, always. Those again are also favorites of everybody. Would it be an appropriate mental health webinar if we didn't talk about the mental health part? So research, again, I have references. You guys can do this, your own research, if you guys request the PowerPoint. Research suggests that certain mental health conditions are related to rumination, excessive worry, and negative self-perception, which all contribute to negative thinking. So we have the anxiety disorders, avoidant personality disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. Excuse me. However, lots of really good advances. Thanks to something called neuroplasticity, it's like the plastic nature in our brains, we can learn, we can heal. With some attention, training, we can learn how to manage these things. Anxiety disorders are very treatable. All of these things are really treatable. Bipolar is treatable. Borderline personality disorders are treatable. Depression is treatable. A lot of psychiatrists suggest, working with a psychiatrist and a therapist are the best ways to combat these things. It's all just a part of it. Again, replacing negative thoughts, just taking a moment, taking a step back. You are not your thoughts, okay? Again, acknowledging them, making sure you're grounded, using the feelings wheel. Identify your emotions, maybe pulling it out for your partner or your kiddo. Hey, kiddo, remember we did this? Let's talk about it. If we think that sometimes our negative thoughts, if they're automatic and maybe we think of them as an untrained, jumping, barking dog, we can't ignore them. Sometimes our thoughts and maybe even feelings associated with anxiety, sometimes they're an alert, like we're supposed to pay attention to them. Sometimes they help us figure out that maybe there is something wrong. So it is their job to convince us to tune into them. So press in, pay attention. I love it, but I hate it. You have to feel it to heal it. Additional tangible skills is, hey, thank yourself for being able to identify the emotion. and make room for us to be able to talk about it, expose it, write it down, journal it, talk to somebody, give it to nature. Maybe you have a ritual of some sort, going out, and some people put on a worry tree. Let me just touch the tree before I go inside so I can leave all my work at home, and then I'll grab it on the way back out. Compartmentalization, maybe, hey, I just can't do this today. I can't feel this emotion. So I utilize something called a container. Okay, I'm gonna, in my mind's eye, I have this container. I'm going to pretend this container has a lock on it. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna take this feeling. I'm gonna put it in there. I'm gonna shut it, lock it. Hey, that's gonna stay there until I'm ready, because I'm not ready today. And if you can't do it in your mind's eye, then maybe actually getting a tangible jar or a box and taping it up and putting a hole in it and writing some feelings and emotions on a piece of paper, folding it up and sliding it in there. And that's your worry box. And then we got the shake it off, right? Taylor Swift has that song, Shake It Off. It's really fun to get up and dance. So opposite thought is also a good example. This is not easy to do because sometimes it can be a little awkward at first, but it's also really important that you tell yourself positive things. So we have an unhelpful thought. Oh, I can't do this. Wait. That's not really true. I'm learning how to do this. So it might seem impossible right now, but I'm open to learning. And then I'm so awkward. Well, okay, maybe, but that's part of my unique personality. And people love me anyway. I'm a failure. Well, I'm a human. So humans make mistakes, right? Nobody likes me. Well, that's not true either, because I do have friends who love me, and well, I love me. So even if you don't like me, that's okay. I love me. I'm embarrassed. Well, again, I'm a human. I make mistakes. There is a comedian. His name is Kyle Cease. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. And he is he's a spiritual thought leader now, but he recommends people add, and I love that, onto every unhelpful thought. So he suggested, I failed my test, and I love that. I can't find a date, and I love that. I will never be enough, and I love that. So he says that it's an exercise of radical self-acceptance, understanding that, hey, this is the way life is sometimes, but I'm also a human and I can learn. And I love that. He adds a little bit of the humor, right? Pretty neat. So if you have a moment and you would like to have some humor into some of this, Kyle Cease, C-E-A-S-E. So there's this concept called internal versus external validation. Internal validation is the ability to honor and acknowledge your positive attributes, strengths, achievement, and emotions yourself. Hey, I know I'm good at my job. And I congratulate myself because I work hard for that. Hey, I know I'm a good person. I know I'm a loving person, and I'm good with that. External validation is the acknowledgement of strengths and emotions from other people. And if you rely on external validation from friends and loved ones, sometimes it could be really defeating when they're judging you or making criticisms of you. Because if you live by their acceptance of who you are, then it's almost as if you're going to be destroyed by their criticisms of who you are. So if you have family members that maybe don't like you, or friends that think you're ridiculous, or maybe even coworkers that think you're just not doing your job the way you're supposed to, but you know that you have good integrity, you know you have hard work, I'm good. I got me. One of my favorite quotes is by Anthony Hopkins. He says, it's none of my business what other people think about me. Man, none of my business what other people think about me. I love it. So here we go with the boundaries. I always have to talk about boundaries. I love boundaries. Boundaries are a really difficult concept to understand sometimes. but they're very necessary because they teach others how to treat you. I can express my wants and my needs to my partner, to my friends, to my children, to my family, to my boss, to my coworkers, and I can get them met, or we can negotiate about them. But if I express my wants and my needs to other people and they ignore me, or they don't even want to talk about it, or, they just kind of blow it off like it's not a big deal, then that's a question of a potential boundary violation. But to be fair is, if I don't express my wants and my needs, then nobody's going to know about them. We know that relationships based on equality and trust are the most beneficial. That's a equal sharing of finances with your partner. It's an equal understanding of chores in the home amongst all the family members. It's, hey, I'm going to do my job at my work, and my boss is going to understand that I can't do her job also, right? Acknowledging that your feelings are valid, but they're not always truthful. That's a hard one because feelings are really personal. And if somebody says something to me and I take it the wrong way, that's not that other person's problem, that's my problem. So just kind of understanding that I have to take responsibility for the way I feel. Because maybe that other person wasn't intentional in trying to hurt my feelings. Or maybe they were holding me accountable and I was embarrassed and now I'm frustrated. Having healthy disagreements with people in your life, no name calling, no degrading, no stonewalling, no, just being totally disrespectful, no abuse, obviously physical abuse, just being able to have a disagreement. There's a program, Fighting Fair. It's beautiful for couples. Now, I work with a lot of people, and I work with a lot of professionals, and they say, oh, just have some boundaries. You just need boundaries, just boundaries. And I'm like, okay, but I'm sitting there like, well, I don't know what boundaries are, what are boundaries, and then you almost feel kind of silly asking about them. But then there's consequences to boundaries, which really people don't talk about. So if I'm in a situation or a relationship and I have a boundary, maybe I don't know that I have a boundary, and my partner says something and it hurts me, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. That was a boundary. Hold on, pause. Can we talk about it assertively? And then if that partner's like, I'm not going to respect you and I really don't care how you feel, then maybe when you continue to reinforce that boundary and you follow through with that boundary, and maybe that partner or your friend is like, yeah, that's not going to work for me, I'm out, and then they leave, that's a devastating consequence of a boundary. But again, we're treating people how to we're teaching people how to treat us with our boundaries or our lack of boundaries. And so if somebody's disrespectful to me or abusive towards me, and I allow it without stopping and telling them that, whoa, wait a second, that's not okay. But then I start to say, whoa, hold on, that's not okay, and I'm not going to tolerate that. Then again, they're going to leave. Or they could leave. And that's okay. All right, here we go with the children and self-esteem. Always a big believer that comparison is the thief of joy, even as adults. But whenever we have multiple children, trying not to judge them based on their siblings. Well, your sister's this, your brother does that. How come you can't get A's? Why are you always tardy? What's going on with your sports development? How come you can't express your emotional wants and needs appropriately? We've been over this a million times and you don't get it. Your sister gets it. Also kind of allowing some space for them to act independently. Teach them to take responsibility for their actions. This again is a boundary. We as parents, yes, we're responsible for our children, but we can allow them and teach them to have some boundaries. So don't prevent them from experiencing the consequences of their choices. If they don't follow the rule at school and they get in trouble, then upholding the discipline that the teacher did. Teach them relationships based on equality and trust, again, are the most beneficial. I remember my daughters came home one day and they're like, Mom, this girl, she's my frenemy. And I'm like, what the heck is a frenemy? And she's like, well, she's my friend sometimes and she's my enemy. And I'm like, red flag. Let's talk about what that really means and if that's appropriate. Again, encouraging children to express their wants and needs, getting the color wheel out, having them color it, asking them, what does happiness look like for you? What does it feel like for you when you have really big emotions? Teach them emotions and grounding skills. Really good article here, the Mindful Parenting at Better Up. Effort to bring awareness, attention, and curiosity to your interactions with your children. Your children are people too. So having a discussion about what's going on in their life and genuinely being curious is just a beautiful thing. Listening, reflecting, and choosing to respond in a way that uplifts both parent and child and helps foster a nurturing relationship in a safe environment for them to grow and for you to not be frustrated as a parent, because parenting's hard. Parenting is not easy. I got 6 kids. I know it's not easy. So benefits: reduces anger, stress, and anxiety in your home and in the relationship with your kiddo and your kiddo themselves and you yourself as a parent. Because instead of, sometimes there's a lot of emotional turmoil. We know that kiddos, when they throw tantrums, they're just trying to get a need met. So, hey, instead of throwing a tantrum, let's talk about it. Helps deactivate the fight-flight response. Less emotional energy, developing self-regulation and emotional flexibility, and it models coping skills. Sorry about that typo. Coping skills for children. So if they're outside of your home, but you're teaching them how to stay grounded, you're teaching them how to talk and express their wants and their needs, they're going to be able to take that outside of your home and utilize that in society. Encourage positive and loving interactions. So again, I know sometimes we're tired, we're overwhelmed. And again, our battery at 100% was this morning, and now it's 6 o'clock p.m. and my battery is probably at a 30%. And I'm just trying to get dinner ready. Kids are screaming, homework's trying to get done. I'm trying to finish up some last minute tasks at work. And okay, we're just trying to have a conversation, just trying to all get our needs and wants met, right? I love positive self-talk. I love affirmations. I can do hard things. Say this to yourself, say this to your kids, especially when the negative stuff comes in, counteract it. Wait, no, that's not true. I can do hard things. I am loved. I am important. I don't give up even when I fail. I'm strong. I love myself the way I am. I believe in myself. So we just went over these things. I hope that this was beneficial for you. I hope that you learned some things. Unfortunately, a week ago, we dealt with some pretty traumatic situation in our community. I am a huge believer in the support of a community. Again, today, just as you sign in for our webinar today, next week they have another webinar that kind of focuses on community trauma. And I encourage you at the same time, if you go to the mentalhealthkc.org and just click on the link to register, there's some going to be really, really good stuff that they talk about. And it's going to be presented by Andrea Dalton. And that's all that I have. Here's the references. Hopefully we can get them to you. Okay.
So thank you, Autumn. That was fantastic. And we still have about 6 minutes. This is a great opportunity to ask questions. I am going to put into the chat the next webinar. As Autumn said, we have our next webinar next Thursday. It's a special one that's going to be focused on community trauma. And so it's okay that you're not okay, I think is the name of it.
It is, let me see. Community trauma, it's okay not to be okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I was so excited to hear that.
So that's just a special one that we have that's just focused really kind of on on the aftermath of the parade. So we'd love to see you guys there. That's the chat, or it's in the chat. It's the webinar, the Zoom link. But this is also a great time ask Autumn some questions. So let's see. Right now we just have a lot of thank yous.
You guys are so welcome. I'm so honored to be here to share this information with you today.
And Heather said, this was great, not an affirmation, but when I tell myself, when I tell myself, when I realize I'm engaged in negative self-talk, if I would not say that to someone else, I cannot say that to myself.
Very good. Yes. I love that. How would you, what would you say to a friend who was saying that? That's really, really good, Heather.
And then Crystal, talked about loving the idea of putting negative thoughts into a box.
It is very powerful. I'm okay with sharing my slides. I don't know if you can just email it to everybody. We've got a few requests for those. I think somebody is asking, how do we get a CEU?
Yep. I'll put it
We
up
hear
there
you.
in just a minute. Usually we put it up with about a couple minutes to go.
And I don't know everything about self-esteem. I feel like this was a pretty good overall depiction of, how to offer some support for you. So
we do have a question. So do you have any advice on helping kids deal with ghosting?
with ghosting. So, my response is the same as if they were to respond. So if they're not responding to you, then that's the same as that is a response. And so unfortunately, I would consider that a relationship not based on equality and trust, because people who withhold their affection intentionally is actually a sign of emotional abuse and gaslighting. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, and ghosting can be really, really difficult, and really it can be kind of an emotional trauma. But hi, Crystal.
So I know we have a couple questions about slides and recordings. Both of those will be available starting next week. We put those up on our website, so that way if people would like to access them, they can. We just ask that, you don't reproduce the slides in any way. So yes, and then certificate of attendance is also up. So if you'd like to get the certificate of attendance, you are welcome to. Okay, so with that, thank you, Autumn. I thought this was fantastic in terms of just really learning more about self-esteem, and how to boost our own self-esteem, which I think is so incredibly important. And sometimes we're so focused on other people that we forget about ourselves. So thank you.
Password. I think it was capital RAY 2.22. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. I'm just going to respond to that email with my slides. Is that appropriate?
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
We look forward to seeing all of you guys soon. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, guys.